Hello and welcome again. This is Sherry Dennis, also known as the Robot General, and I would like to introduce our wonderful DaNel Hogan. She's the STEMAZing director, and we're going to be asking DaNel several questions today. So DaNel, you had created some online and offline resources. What science standards does the lesson or lessons connect to?
Well, so this is a lesson on Bernoulli's principle, and there's a few different demos that are included in the lesson. And it really addresses the big idea, the core idea, P3, which is in the physical science section of the Arizona Science Standards. And that one is changing the movement of an object requires a net force to be acting on it. So it's physics, which, as you know, is my favorite.
Love it.
And then if you're looking at specific standards, then the P3 standards, that one in particular shows up in first grade, fifth grade, seventh grade, and then also, of course, in high school physics.
So a nice big range there.
Yeah, so it's nice that we can differentiate it and have it work for lots of different grade levels.
Absolutely. So what are some of the tips and strategies you use to engage students who happen to be on if the lessons are online?
Yeah, so I've done this virtually with students and it's worked pretty well. Mainly they just need to have the supplies ready in advance. So it's always nice to send out that supply list. And in this case, as usual, we're focused on STEM on the cheap, either readily available or really inexpensive materials. So in this case, you just need a strip of paper, a spoon, and a faucet. So we're assuming they're at home. They probably have a faucet available. And then also 2 empty coffee mugs, which will not be damaged in normal activities related to this lesson, and then an empty beverage can. So as long as they have those supplies ready to go before we get started, they're doing pretty good. And then in terms of online, you know, it's all about giving them some hints about what to do and then letting them explore and come back. And so not this like constantly in front of the screen. So what I like to do and what you'll see in the videos for the students is that I like to get it set up. So initially for the strip of paper, show them how to get it set up, hold it against their mouth, and then do not do the activity. So my biggest pet peeve when I see people sharing demonstrations online in video form is that they do the whole thing and don't leave it for the students to explore and make sense of the world themselves, which we're really committed to. So
Absolutely.
I think my other big strategy is just that being able to show them the setup, let them explore, and then come back and debrief what they saw.
That is so awesome. And that's so needed and amazing that you have that in your lesson where you stop and then they do the activity and come back. You have any other tips or strategies as far as like how do they interact? Would they be typing? Would they use some type of form?
So I guess it depends, you know, like if I'm a formal teacher and we're not in this remote learning, emergency remote learning, and you're really trying to get some feedback from the students, they could use some of our noticing and wondering journals, which you know that we love, that we developed together.
Yes.
Or I might just have them write in the chat what they've noticed and wondered. So part of it depends on, of course, what I'm thinking about as a teacher for my learning objectives. So it could just be in the chat. If I have a smaller group, I might just have students talk to each other and share their ideas. And using all those strategies like raising their hands and then soliciting responses from other students. So pretty similar to what I would do in a classroom, but just doing it virtually, trying to get students to share what they've noticed, what they're wondering, and then let that kind of drive where the lesson goes.
All right. So how would you differentiate this lesson?
Well, so again, we said the standards go from first grade to fifth grade to seventh grade in high school physics, and that's about as big of a range as you can get. And so I think it is self-differentiating in some ways because students are going to notice and wonder at the level that they're at. And then part of it is for the specific standard that we have at those different levels, which practices am I really trying to hone in on? So if I look at the science and engineering practices, that's going to determine some of the differentiation for those different grade levels. I will say too, like I have done this with also third grade students. We weren't at the time connecting it to any particular standard, just of noticing and wondering. and also with some first grade students. And, you know, where for the spoon activity, when they're putting it in the faucet, what I want them to notice is like it gets stuck in the water stream. And when you pull it out, the spoon kind of angles. They were making like waterfalls. Like I saw it ramping off the spoon, and it was not at all what I really wanted them to notice. But also, you know, my other hint is just that I certainly valued still those noticings and wonderings and tried to steer them to the ones that I was hoping they would make. And I will say that I did not ever actually get there on that particular demo for them to notice that the spoon was kind of getting stuck in the stream of water. So for younger students, I might just leave that spoon demonstration out and just use the strip of paper, which worked brilliantly with a huge range of students. And then everyone loves that jumping aluminum can and the exploration that you can do with that. So, and also for younger kids, sometimes it's tricky to get yourself lined up just right when you're blowing into the coffee mug to get the can to go out. So some of it's a little bit of persistence and perseverance to figure it out for the younger students, whereas for older students, that's pretty easy to do. So yeah, there's some lessons learned there along the way for sure.
And I think you kind of hit on the next one. Do you have differences or strategies, things that you would use that were different online that you would do if you were physically in the classroom?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. This one I think is pretty accessible, both online and in a classroom, and even offline with the directions that we provide. I think that students can really engage with that. So I don't know that I would have too many things that would be different.
I am wondering on that one in the classroom, because when we would do it online, kids would have the chance to stop, find that stream of water, and do it. But if you only have one stream of water in the classroom.
That's a great point. Yeah, so that might be challenging. So in that case, you know, you might use a couple students to do the demo and report back to the students while others are observing from a distance. But yeah, that is definitely a challenge if you don't have a sync for every student. So I guess that's an advantage of being online at home is every student likely has access to a faucet. So that's, I guess, a good thing.
Okay, excellent. Finally, are there opportunities to integrate this content with other subject areas? Because, you know, as teachers, we're always looking to pack that all in there.
Yeah, this one is pretty abstract in terms of its, you know, Bernoulli's principle is very physics focused and focused on that. Bernoulli's principle gets into why airplanes fly. So I think you could extend it into airplane flight eventually. And then of course there's lots of rich history and social studies associated with flight and all of that. So that's one possibility. Certainly there's a lot of mathematics that you could bring in, some stats associated with how frequently you can get that the beverage can to jump over and land in the other cup, and how does distance affect that? So there's lots of ways that I think you could put some math in there, and stats probably for students that are a little bit older. So maybe our 7th grade students and our high school students, you could integrate in some higher level math into it. But those are the ones that come to mind as being most obvious in terms of integration opportunities.
Yeah, I love the way that you actually added the engineering process in with the last one. So
Sherry, you've done this activity and you know that aluminum can is so loud and obnoxious. And so I'm going to tell you right now that engineering design challenge of trying to figure out how to do this activity and not have it be so loud and obnoxious is very personal to me. Like, I just don't want to have to listen to that can rattle around all the time. And I'll say that I'm disappointed that I don't have any students that have given me any really good solutions yet. So we're still looking for how could you modify this, use a different object or different materials, or modify the aluminum can so you can still do it. It's still really awesome, but we don't have to listen to that crazy noise that it makes as it's rattling around.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to the next video series or whatever you put out there. We love you.
Thanks, Sherry.